Grace and joy to your family. I have been blessed to be this camp and to be poured out with wisdom from our speakers, from the brothers that organized this. Very thankful to Daniel, Benjamin, and our youth leader, Artem. I pray that in the testimony that I share with you guys and the journey that I walk and that God has been teaching me through different stories in my life, that you might find some encouragement in your walk and maybe in the battles you see every day. So my name is Alex or Sasha Babich. I grew up in Ukraine, in Chernovtsi. I grew up in a family of missionaries. So my parents were missionaries. After the Soviet Union broke apart, my dad and his older brother, who's a pastor, they spent a lot of time traveling through Russia, through Soviet Union, preaching the gospel, planting churches, and doing camps. So big part of my life as I was growing up, my dad started very first Christian camps within the churches, and then the first rehabs, working with people that struggle with alcohol, and different kind of sins. So I was growing up in a Christian family. I saw a lot of miracles from very young age. I saw how devil and how different people attacked Christians in the churches, attacked camps that my parents were involved, and I've seen people change. And I always thought that because of my parents are so great, and I'm being their child, and as long as I'm obedient, it'll be good enough for me. I never thought that I personally need also a personal relationship with God. I relied on my parents because they were this great and they had this, for me, like Polachka, sorry for my Russian, or like this a pedestal like this where they at, and I was like, this was good enough for me. And as I was growing up, I remember my dad gets in a car accident. And as he gets in a car accident, when I was at the age of 7, I didn't realize the beginning what was going on. And when he got in a car accident, we lost connection with him for a few days. And they found him a few days after. They found him in a creek. And they said his car flipped 13 times and it stopped on a tree right before a huge obryv, a huge... thank you. Sorry. And they said it was God's grace that he was alive. They took him out, and after that, he started having epilepsy. And I remember, from us growing up, I didn't understand what was going on. Because every time we called the ambulance, in Ukraine they never came. If they came, it would be a few hours after, or not the next day, where we lived. And we would call, and my mom would help my dad every time he would epilepsy for a few hours. As he was laying down, he was going to do it, and my mom would be helping him, and she would be calling out to God and praying, God, you give us kids, you give us husband. Don't take my husband so kids can have a father. And I didn't really realize what was going on. I was just a kid. I was 7, 8 years old, 9 years old. I was growing up through seeing that always happening, and it didn't click to my head. And then I remember when I was 10 or 11 years old, I broke my leg. It was very bad to the point that after half a year of like having casts and everything, they sent me to a hospital across the country so I can relearn how to walk. And I remember that God taught me one thing. He didn't send me to go there to relearn how to walk physically. He sent me to go there so I can learn how to walk spiritually. Because I realized that I had my parents always next to me. It was the first time I went to a non-Christian hospital when I had no connection with parents, and I realized that no matter who my parents are, I need to have a personal relationship with God. And I remember one day our hospital was next to a prison, and one guy ran away. They closed our hospital. They said no one can go out. This guy ran away with a gun, and we were like sitting there all worried, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds. I was only 11. And the people in my room, they pulled out cards, they pulled out candles, and they started praying to the devil. I remember as they trying to talk to the spirits, and they're trying to call these demonic spirits, and I didn't know what was going on. I started praying to myself. I was like, God, I know you're the God of my parents. I know you've done so many things for my parents, but I need you now. I need you, God, to stop this and give me a hope. I want to be able to see my parents again. And as I was praying this, they were failing. And they're like, we just did this last night. How come we can't call the Spirit again? And they started asking me, like, who are you? And I remember this was the first time I got to share. I was like, I'm a Christian. And I was actually thinking, I was like, am I a really Christian or just my parents are Christians? I remember coming back home, and I came back home and I went to my church. I repented and I gave my life to Christ. And I remember how God at that point just started little by little working with me. I remember as time went by, we got older. My dad would have epilepsy more often. My mom would teach me. I have one brother who's 1 year younger, and she would teach us what to do in case she's not home, and how to help my dad. And I remember as we're getting older, my mom's parents live in the United States. They asked her to come visit her parents as they were not feeling well. So as my mom went for a few months to the United States, tried to do paperwork to invite us. In that half a year, me and my brother, every week, and we sometimes go 2 or 3 times a week, do you remember what my mom do? We would put my dad on the side, do this medical procedure we had to do, and just repeat my mom's words and pray, God, please don't take away my father. I don't know, God, you give me a dad. You give me my father. Like, I may not understand. I may not be obedient to him. I might have arguments with him. But give me for a reason, God. Don't take it away. Like, I know you did so many miracles. Like, God, please, I remember every time trying to save my dad's life and not realizing, like, what God is doing. And every time we called the ambulance, they would think it was a prank because we're kids calling. And we would give the phone to my grandma. And then grandma talked to the ambulance, tell him explain. And my grandma would be in shock. She sees her son dying, and she can't do anything. We would never tell my grandma anymore that what's going on. And we're just trying to pray. And this half year passes, and we finally get a visit to the United States. We come, we see my mom. He has a few times epilepsy. They send him to hospitals, one hospital, another, and they told him, there's only one thing for you. You have to take drugs. And they put him on drugs. I don't know what the drugs are called. They were very strong. They said, you become immune to him, you have to increase the dose. He was taking these pills every morning, evening, increasing the dose. And my dad's like, well, what will happen if I stop taking them? And they're like, hold on, let me show you. They take him to this hospital, and then they just showed him a lot of people. They just struggle with psychopaths, people that just lost themselves. They have this is what will happen in the best case scenario, or you will die if you stop taking drugs. And I remember as my dad was going through this, and he couldn't sleep, he couldn't emotionally think, he couldn't understand, and he's like, I can't take this anymore. He's like, why? He's like, why I have to struggle this? Why do I have to have my kids struggle this? And I remember I'm talking to his older brother, who's a pastor in Russia, and we had so many conversations. We invited him to came here, and with other pastors in Sacramento, they pour over oil on my dad in 2014. And they prayed over him, and he prayed for healing. And I remember that he's like, I know the step of faith, right after the prayer, I have to stop taking drugs. And the first night, it's like devil attacked me. That's what my dad said. It's like, how can you do that? You know you'll die. Why are you testing me? And the whole first week, it was hard. It was hard for a family. Well, one thing I can testify today, that my dad's still alive today and he's fully healed. He never had an epilepsy since that day. And I remember that it's only God's grace, like to see what none of us deserved ever, and God completely healed my dad. And I remember at that point, like seeing that miracle that God just done in our lives. I remember I decided to take the step. I got baptized. And I thought everything was going fine with my family. God done such a miracle. I see so many things. I dedicate myself in church, helping with the youth ministry. I remember helping in Sunday school, a lot of other things. I was very involved. But I realized that my brother started missing church. He started going hang out with other friends, started doing other things. And I'm like, but my brother, he's only 1 year apart. Like, you see the same things. If you grow up together, you see God doing so many things. You see God heal our dad. But yet he chose to hang out with friends. I remember he coming home high, coming home drunk. And I remember every time he come home, he would get punished by my dad. And I'm sitting in another room crying, like, God, like, he knows everything. He saw, like, why do you allow this to happen? Why not? Why do you take away my only brother? Give me one and only brother. Like, why do I have to see that happen? And every time he would come, get punished, and the same thing over and over. And he keeps doing it and doing it and doing it. And I remember one day he came back, and I know my dad got a belt, and I know, like, what's going to happen. I just went to my room, started praying and crying. I was like, God, I don't know, like, do something about it. I remember the first time my dad put the belt down, and he just talked to him, to my brother. I remember since then, my brother repented. And I remember one day after that came out in church, he repented from the church, he became baptized, and he is a youth leader now in his church. And guys, some of these stories, I want to be encouragement to you guys that God is all powerful. He can do anything. He can use anyone, no matter who you are. He will, as long as you make yourself available for Him, as long as you make yourself as a tool to be used in His hands, He can do anything. I've seen people struggle different things. I remember my first trip to South Africa. I came and we went to visit villages, we went to visit churches, went to orphanages, prisons. And I remember after a long day of walking in the village and preaching the gospel, we came back and one of our main pastors, he got very sick. We don't know what the disease was. We didn't have an access to a doctor in that part of Africa, and we just didn't know what to do. We started praying for him. We were out of options. And we knew that we actually planned to have an event. We were supposed to teach at the University of Cape Town in South Africa. And he was our main speaker. He was supposed to teach where some of the pastors got there from all over Africa. And we didn't know where our options. We were praying. And I remember we found just a little bottle of oil in one of the suitcases. No one ever planned to come. And as we were reading Bible, we just come to that passage is, if you pray, if you believe, if you put oil, God will heal. And I remember a few brothers and I, we didn't have nothing, we didn't have an option. We just got the little bottle of oil, we put over him. He couldn't even say a single word, he was very sick. We prayed over the pastor, and he barely said amen. And the next day he was healed. I remember going to that conference, and as he was preaching there and seeing like God completely do miracles. Like I got to talk to a Nigerian pastor who, as we shared, like one of the countries there doing one of the most persecution. And I remember asking him, he was maybe my age, if not a little older. And I was like, what are your plans? What are your goals in life? What do you want to do? Why are you here? And he said, I just want to get some knowledge better of understanding the Bible so I can come back to my people and share the gospel. And like, first I thought it was like, oh, it's such a like, it feels like such a short, such a simple, like, that's all you want to do? And he says, yeah, like this is, I know, he's like, we don't have that much lifetime to live, but if God gives me a chance, he's like, this is what I want to give all the way to God. The second time I went to South Africa, and I went a few more places, missionary. I remember I got to a prison, and I spent there a few days with the kids. And it was for boys from age of 12 to 25. And they committed something that deserved them a life or double life sentence. So a 12-year-old killed 40 to 50 people, not realizing what's going on, and end up in this place. What's interesting that as we were in the area, we had to get into with the special people through the night through special bus because it's one of the highest crimes in the world. And they said that because of the kids and everyone growing up there, they don't know nothing except drugs and war. And there's just all these different gangs and they fight each other and they teach kids and kids grow up and all they know is in order to live, I need to either sell drugs or I need to kill people. And from age of 12, these kids just kill people and they don't know nothing. And I remember sitting there and talking to one and seeing these kids in this prison, most of them became Christians in the prison. And I was just so amazed, I was so encouraged that whatever, they might not even be able to see what freedom is again, but they're so happy to have freedom in Christ. Because in the prison, they were able to find God. These are the people that are able to visit those prisons. I was encouraged because I was able to share the gospel and I was able to see people come to God with a broken life and God just changed them so amazingly. One thing I wanted to leave and encourage to each one, remember, no matter what you're battling, whether you think maybe you or I had a perfect life, and no matter what it is, your story, God wants to make it His story in your life. That as long as you make yourself available for God, you make yourself as a worthy vessel, a worthy tool to be used by God, a worthy instrument. God is ready to transform you, help you to where you're battling, and to be the banner of your life, Jehovah Nissi, like in Exodus chapter 17. And we also see that throughout the Bible, that there's many stories, I'm sure, something I can share and something you guys can share. Everyone has a story. Everyone has that story as they mentioned. But remember that His story, you're part of His story. And don't be ashamed to share His story with others. And God will bless you. Amen.